I got angry with my wife last weekend. We were lying in bed Sunday morning and I was kissing her and she started to talk about all the things we had to get done that day. And it made me upset that she couldn't enjoy a few minutes with me before we got busy. So I yelled, "Fine, let's just get out of bed. And yes, I'm upset with you." And I jumped out of bed and I stormed off into the bathroom to take a shower. And as I was taking a shower, I cooled down enough to realize that I wasn't really being fair to Michelle. I mean, she didn't do anything wrong. We were having a busy weekend full of activities, and I was feeling a bit burned out. I was thinking about enjoying a few moments in bed before we had to get up. When she shared her list of things to do, it set me off. And for some reason, her talking about everything that we had to get done triggered my emotions. After my shower, I went and apologized to her for yelling, and when I explained that it was in reaction to my disappointment with a busy weekend, she understood. I mean, I don't think this type of fight is unusual with couples. Couples that we mentor tell us how they fight about things, and often it doesn't get resolved. And I'd like to use this example to talk about 3 ways to help couples to work through conflict. When we work with couples, we introduce language around emotional triggers. Those are the little things that set you off. Often we react way out of line to what is actually said or done to us. When Michelle started to talk about what we need to get done on Sunday, I reacted. It triggered me. I reacted far more than the situation warranted. When we ask couples about their triggers, they often don't recognize what is triggering them, and honestly, this can take some self-reflection. But when they do identify them, the results are often amazing. It's much easier for both people to manage their conflict in their emotions once they understand their triggers. So people get emotionally flooded and they react. Flooding is when your emotions take over. You feel so overwhelmed with emotions that your thinking brain is shut down and you react, and you often react poorly. When Michelle started to talk about her task list for the day, it triggered me in a way that I became flooded. My heart rate increased. I was overwhelmed with the thought that she doesn't enjoy being in bed with me and she's only thinking about her task list. My brain wasn't really functioning at that moment. When we work with couples, we'll ask them what is happening to them in that instance. So typical responses: fight. When some people get flooded, they fight, they lash out, and they attack. Flight. You get out. This is what I did. I took flight. At that moment, I didn't want to stay there, so I marched off to the shower. Freeze. Some people just freeze. They shut down and they stonewall. And this is their way to manage their overwhelming emotions. My point is that when you're working with couples, know that people get flooded. We all do. And managing emotions is part of managing marital conflict. So we ask couples what they can do the next time this happens. And they're often able to come up with tactics to soothe their emotions. Look for the softer emotions. Anger or resentment is what we often feel most strongly. Our partner does or says something and we become angry. We get flooded and then we respond out of that emotion. Anger and resentment are usually covering up softer emotions. Softer emotions typically show vulnerability and they are easier for our partners to understand. These emotions elicit a more positive response. Softer emotions are things like hurt or fear, sadness, rejection, or abandonment. When I got angry at Michelle, I knew that there was something else under the anger. And after I cooled down, I started to think about what was really bothering me. And I recognized it was the sense that I was overwhelmed and I had to get done. And I was also disappointed that I wasn't going to get a day off. When I explained what was bothering me to Michelle, she was able to understand those softer emotions much better than my anger. And she rapidly forgave me for my anger and poor behavior. And there was a time in our marriage when we both would have gotten angry. She would have reacted. Neither one of us would have thought about what was really going on inside of us, and we wouldn't have looked for the emotional trigger. The conflict would have created resentment, and it may have gone on for days. So we have gotten much healthier as we've started to recognize our triggers and what's happening inside of us. So you can help other couples to process their own emotions in the same way. So let me give you some tips. Help couples to recognize their emotional triggers. Ask couples, about their emotional triggers. What triggered them? And when they do get upset, what's really happening? Take steps to manage emotional flooding. Emotions will happen. There's going to be times you feel flooded by your emotions. So ask couples what they can do the next time it happens. When we ask them this, they usually think through something they can do, like taking a short time out. Look for softer emotions. Ask couples to identify their softer emotions. What's really the emotion under the anger or resentment? What's the vulnerable emotion? So those 3 tips again: help couples recognize their emotional triggers, take steps to manage emotional flooding, and look for the softer emotions.